Collier, you have a very interesting job and a very interesting business. Let's talk a little bit about, your business, your role within it, but then also what was your career path to get to this position? So what is your company?
I work for a company called LGM Financial Services, and so we work in the finance and insurance space with a lot of automotive brands. Basically put, we do extended warranties and products like that for a lot of the brands in Canada. So we work coast to coast across Canada, and we work with about 10 different automotive brands right now, as well as a few of our own brands that we work on.
So how do you interface with customers? Is it just online, or do you have these relationships with different automotive companies that also help to create this relationship?
Yeah, we work with about 3,500 automotive dealers across the country.
Wow.
And so we're what you call a B2B brand, so we don't do a lot of customer-facing work. We do have some parts of our business that are customer-facing, but broadly speaking, it works through dealers. So a customer will buy a contract or a policy that we are administering by going through the dealer. If they have a problem with their vehicle, they'll go back to that dealer as well, get it serviced, and then we will pay the dealer to have that vehicle fixed. And
what's your role in the company?
I'm the president and CEO. I've been in that role since just prior to COVID, so perfect timing to get into that role. But I've been with the organization for about 11 years.
Mm-hmm. So what does your day look like? Most people go, so what exactly does a CEO and president do?
Well, one of I've worked in BC-based companies and some national, and one of the fun things about working in a national company when you're based in BC is an early start.
Oh yeah, how early?
Because the phone's usually starting. Well, the phone's quite often ringing by 6 o'clock meetings, things like that. So it's a bit of an earlier start some days, but and then a lot of it in my role is in meetings and working with our team. I've got a fantastic team at LGM. Some of them are very seasoned veterans, some of them are a little newer. A lot of it is really just working with people day in and day out on different initiatives and projects and trying to, like any business, we have our issues that we have to work through. Something not going well for a customer that needs to get turned around, and sometimes that'll hit my attention, sometimes our team looks after it. But
so is your company one with shareholders, and therefore you have also a responsibility to, be the face to them?
We do. We're a private company, and we have an individual shareholder, the founder of our company, founded the company 25 years ago. He stepped out of the CEO role and into an executive chair role when I took the reins 3 years ago. But we have now developed different governance and accountability to him in terms of how we meet with him on a regular basis. I check in with him once a week, and our broader team will meet with him every month for a board meeting. We're still working on developing our governance. It's evolving from being that private company to one that's sort of is more grown up, I guess.
Okay, so you have to develop that policy. You have to also prepare each week for a meeting. That would be one part of it, but then you also have how many different department heads that are going to be reporting to you, and how do you prepare for that? Because that's time consuming as well.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we work on is, we expect all of our leaders in the organization to meet with their team members once a week, and so I have meetings with all of my direct reports on our executive leadership team every week. And a lot of it is they're driving the meeting. Like, what do you want to talk about? How can I coach you? How can I support you? What topics do you want to cover off? How can I help? So that's sort of my MO in terms of working with them. I obviously will bring some things to that meeting as well, where I've got some questions or need to share something. But generally, it's structured in a coaching kind of a model on how I can help them.
Mm-hmm. But you also have an outward-facing responsibility as well. You, in essence, become like the face of the company. How consuming is that, and what are some of the elements of it?
Yeah, well, fortunately we have lots of faces in our company.
Yeah.
so I have some great people that also support on that front as well. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of my role is to meet with our OEM partners from time to time, and so I spent some time back east because very few of them are in BC. So we'll often meet with them, make sure things are working well, check in with them, talk about their strategic plans, where do they want to go, how do we help and support them, hopefully, have conversations about continuing our relationship and renewing our contract with them, that kind of thing.
Huh. So you say you have early starts. How long does your day go?
Depends on the day, obviously, but it can definitely go into the evenings at times. I'm kind of going through a bit of a transition, becoming an empty nester. I've got two boys that, so when the boys were younger, I wanted to make sure I was there for, dinner time and bedtime, and then I would open up my own work after that. And if I didn't fall asleep reading a story or something like that, and wake up at 1 in the morning.
Right.
But I would try to commit to doing that. Now we've got both our boys out of the house at university, and so it's my wife and I, and so it's evolving a little bit and on that front. But yeah, generally I'll work into the evenings, and lots of multitasking from time to time as well on different things, taking a call here or there. But yeah, generally there's sort of evenings as prep work for the next day. Getting caught up on things that I didn't get to during the day because of meetings took precedence, things like that.
So let's go back to where you got started.
Yeah.
You graduated from high school. Where'd you go from there?
Graduated from high school, was super excited about electronics, had a kind of an advanced into BCIT, and I thought, that's really interesting. And in hindsight, maybe I should have gone that route, seeing where the world's gone with electronics. But was really interested in how things work. I've always had that interest. I think when I was like a kid in grade 1, I took apart the telephone and wanted to figure out how it would work and everything like that. My parents are like, but I've always had an interest in things worked, and I think nothing is more interesting than the human body. And so I started down a path towards going into medicine, and was really interested in that. That was my university kind of direction, was to go into science, and the plan was to go into medicine. And then along the way, I ran one of the student painting companies, and I had an opportunity to run a business, employ people, get customers, and I had so much fun. I just loved it.
I mean, you went out and painted people's houses, that business.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly. And so I love the whole idea of running a business and all the elements of it, and working with people and working with customers and that. And so I really enjoyed that aspect. So I came, back that next semester, and I'm like, okay, I got to get out of science and I got to get into business. And then I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to finish science because it's something that I've always been passionate about. So I finished my undergrad degree in science. Eventually went back after spending a couple years at Vancouver, went back and did an MBA, and got the business degree, and then continued on working in financial services.
So you graduated from, was it UBC that you were at?
UBC, yeah.
Yeah, and where'd you go?
I ended up going to work at Vancouver. I was a frontline teller at my community branch at Vancouver. And I just, initially went in, and I guess probably in the first year started to get a little bored of it, because I'd, done some of my own things and run some of my own business, and I'm like, I need more. So I started looking at, can I buy a business? Can I start a business? And explored a bunch of things. And then I think something happened about the 1-year mark of working at Vancouver. I started to get noticed and find other opportunities. I applied for a lot as well, trying to see if I could grow a career there. But really things started to take off, and I started to move jobs about every 18 months after
Within
that.
Vancouver?
Within Vancouver, yeah.
So it was a good career.
It was a fantastic career. I was very fortunate because I had some really great people that I had an opportunity to learn from and work from that were just incredibly supportive of my career and helping me move forward as well.
Were you at Vancouver at the time that they started to bring in community banking for people who were, at the, the more struggling end of the,
like Pigeon Park savings. Yeah.
So that was probably an early introduction to social purpose. I remember doing an interview with Tamara Vrooman when she was CEO about this, and how it fit with what the objectives of the company were.
In fact, you can roll the clock back even further to, I think my earliest introduction to it was working with the Dean Mees, who was Canadian Business Social Responsibility, is where she went after. And some of the time, that was sort of when I moved from Vancouver to Citizens Trust Company and Citizens Bank of Canada, which were subsidiaries of Vancouver.
Yeah.
And that's when we started Citizens Bank of Canada, which was an online bank, which was kind of innovative at the time. I think we were racing with M-Banks to be the first online digital bank. But at the same time, Linda Crompton was our CEO, and Linda said, no, this is going to be a socially responsible bank as well. And so that was one of my first introductions to, well, what does that mean? And it was early days of kind of corporate social responsibility, back in the days where it was more about negative screening. It was like, well, we aren't going to have the following as customers. And it was a little bit tricky because we had a customer in the legacy business that was an arms dealer, and we had to say goodbye. We had to part ways with them because
that's where values really demonstrate themselves, when you're willing to pay a price for it.
Yeah. That evolved since. I think Vancouver has moved on a lot from then. Great organization, so many great examples. But as it evolved, it started to actually work with some of those customers and say, look, how can we change? I'm not sure how you would change an arms deal. It might be a little tough. But certainly some businesses, I think, have the ability to kind of think differently and get them on board with thinking around a bit more corporate responsibility and social purpose. And I think that's where Vancity's been incredibly successful.
And then you left there and you went back to your alma mater.
I did, yeah.
What were you
I
doing
left
there?
Vancity after 16 years, and it was a very tough decision because I had a lot of love for that organization. It was a big part of shaping who I am. But one of my mentors, Rolf Baumbusch, said to me, he goes, "Are you a lifer?" And I'm like, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, I've been here 30 years. I'm probably not going anywhere else. Do you want to be me? And at the time, it gave me a lot of stuff to think about. And I thought about it, and I thought, no, actually, I want to do something else as well. I don't want it to just be this. And so I left Vancity after 16 years, went to work, as you say, at UBC. And it was an exciting time because UBC was embarking on what at the time was the largest capital fundraising campaign in history, in Canadian history. UBC and U of T sort of do this to each other constantly. But what I loved about what we were doing at UBC was not just the fundraising. We were also embarking on, for the first time ever, to the best of our knowledge, working on engaging with alumni, not necessarily looking for money, but saying, how can we engage you back into the university? Because my generation, we went to UBC, we felt a little bit like a number. There wasn't really a lot of engagement there. We had our friends that we would hang out with and groups that we were involved in. That was all great. But the institution itself didn't do much to keep in touch, didn't do much to keep us engaged. And this was an opportunity to bring back the hundreds of thousands of alumni over the many, many, many years and find a way of engaging them back into the university on things like events, telling them what the university is working on in terms of the Center for Brain Health, things like that. And as people have gone on with their own careers and have their own interests, there's something going on at UBC that could interest every one of our alumni. And that was kind of cool to find ways to bring them back. So we actually started to measure that. And so we had this two-tiered objective of raise money, but we also wanted to, I think that the terminology is time, talent, and treasure. The treasure thing we figured out real well. We were good at raising money. Yeah. But how do we get time and talent coming back into the university to volunteer time and to engage back with the university? And that was kind of cool.
Huh. And then you moved on to your current employer.
Yeah, I got the phone call from a recruiter to come and work at LGM, and I had no idea who they were and didn't know much about it. And I, quite honestly, I assumed that I'd be meeting. I had a meeting to meet with the founder, Adam Hill, and I came in thinking, okay, this is going to be some, typical entrepreneur, big ego, drive, money. Yeah. And what drew me in was he spoke the same thing I spoke. I've come from my background being at Vancity and at UBC and other and Citizens where I worked. I've always had this philosophy of it starts with employee experience. You have to create a great employee experience or you're dead in the water. Like if your employees don't love coming to work every day, you really got nothing. When you do that, you create a great customer experience. And then when both of those happen, you kind of earn the right to be profitable because you'll have happy customers, want to refer more people, want to do more business with you. That's great. Right. But it doesn't stop there. You've got to come full circle. You've got to find a way of giving back to the communities that you serve, engaging your employees, engaging your customers where you can. Kind of comes back to that social purpose stuff. And Adam talked about all those things, and I just got drawn right into it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. This is a little company no one's really ever heard of, kind of quietly going about making a bit, doing good business. But it has the core principles and philosophies and values that I really resonated with me at the time.
Huh. And how many years ago was that?
It was 11 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you think of the arc of your career, you started with this fascination in electronics and look at where you're at right now. Could you have ever imagined it playing out the way that it did?
No. And I think that's life, right? Like you don't know what's around the corner. What it could be good or it could be bad. You never know.
So what is it? So what is it about you that said I'm willing to take these steps and move in directions that are different than what I thought I was going to explore?
It's a great question. My philosophy, I think, through my career has always been try new things and keep on that edge of learning. So, my early days at Vancity, if I wasn't moving into a new job or a new opportunity, then I was out doing the securities course or doing my MBA or doing something to further my knowledge and my education. We talked earlier to Stuart about, I damaged my knee and I'd take a bit of, had a little more couch time than normal and spent some time taking the Indigenous Canada course through University of Alberta. So I've kind of always wanted to say, how do I keep learning? How do I keep growing as a human being? And I think that's the same philosophy I've had to my career, is always looking for, okay, if an opportunity is there, how can I help? It's not that I necessarily always want to be, the lead or the CEO or the one leading, but it's more about how can I help us move something forward and make something happen.
And that's a great bit of insight to leave with somebody who watches this interview. Thanks for sharing a part of your life with us.
Thanks for having me, Stu. Appreciate it.